The coffee maker gurgled to life at exactly 6:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 10 years. I stood in my kitchen, wearing the same navy blue robe Emily bought me for our 5th anniversary, watching the dark liquid drip into the glass carafe. 10 years of marriage, a decade of shared mornings, shared dreams, shared lies. My name is Nick Callahan, and today I was going to destroy my wife's life. Not because I'm a monster, not because I'm crazy, but because 3 weeks ago, I discovered that Emily, my beautiful, charming, socially perfect wife, had been sleeping with my brother Jason for the better part of 2 years. And tonight, at our anniversary party, surrounded by family and friends at Romano's restaurant, she was going to toast our wonderful 10 years, while her lover sat at the same table, smiling and nodding like the supportive brother-in-law he pretended to be. The irony was delicious, almost as delicious as what I had planned. "Morning, honey." Emily's voice drifted down from upstairs, sing-song and artificially cheerful. She'd been using that tone a lot lately, the voice of someone trying too hard to sound normal. "Coffee smells amazing." "Just the usual," I called back, pouring myself a mug. "Black coffee, no sugar." Emily always said it matched my personality. She thought she was being cute. Now I realized she was probably just being honest. I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood stairs. Even at 7 a.m., Emily Callahan was put together. Hair perfectly styled, makeup applied with surgical precision, outfit coordinated down to her jewelry. She worked as an HR director at a mid-size consulting firm, and she dressed the part. Professional, untouchable, in control. "Big day today," she said, gliding into the kitchen and pouring her own coffee. 2 sugars, splash of cream. I'd been making it for her for 10 years. Muscle memory. "Very big day," I agreed, watching her over the rim of my mug. "I've been looking forward to tonight for weeks." That was true, just not in the way she thought. Emily smiled, that practiced smile she used for clients and cocktail parties. "The reservation is at 7. Everyone should be there by 7:15. Your parents, my parents, Jason, the Hendersons, the Patels." She rattled off the guest list like a military briefing. 28 people, all gathered to celebrate our marital bliss. "Jason's definitely coming?" I asked casually. "Of course. He wouldn't miss it." Something flickered across her face. Too quick to be guilt, too knowing to be innocent. "He's been such a good friend to us over the years." Friend. Right. My brother Jason was 38, 2 years older than me, and everything I wasn't. Tall where I was average height, charming where I was quietly sarcastic, successful where I was merely competent. He'd been married once, to a woman named Linda, who divorced him after 3 years for reasons she never fully explained. Now I suspected I knew why. Jason worked in sales for a pharmaceutical company, the kind of job that required a lot of client dinners and out-of-town conferences. Perfect cover for a man who liked to sample what wasn't his. He drove a BMW, lived in a downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows, and had never met a mirror he didn't love. Growing up, Jason had always taken what he wanted. My toys, my friends, my girlfriend in high school. I'd learned to accept it as the natural order of things. The older brother gets first pick, the younger brother gets the leftovers. But Emily wasn't leftovers. Emily was my wife. "I should get going," Emily said, checking her phone. "Big presentation this morning, then I need to pick up my dress from the cleaners." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "The blue one?" "The red one. The one you said makes me look—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Stunning," I finished. It did make her look stunning. I'd told her so the first time she wore it, to Jason's birthday party last year. I wondered now if she'd chosen it specifically for him, if they'd planned that night, whispered about it, laughed about how oblivious her husband was. That's right. Stunning. She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that landed nowhere near my lips. I'll see you tonight. Don't be late. Wouldn't dream of it. After she left, I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the artifacts of our shared life. Wedding photos on the refrigerator, a coffee mug that read "World's Best Husband" that she'd bought me as a joke, a magnetic calendar covered in Emily's neat handwriting, dinner dates, work events, social obligations. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken 3 weeks ago. Emily's second phone, the one she thought I didn't know about, hidden in her gym bag. Text messages going back 23 months, photos that made my stomach turn, plans and promises and intimate details about their affair. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the timeline. They'd started sleeping together just 8 months after Emily and I had tried to have a baby. 8 months after we'd sat in Dr. Peterson's office and learned that I had a low sperm count, that conceiving would be difficult, but not impossible. 8 months after Emily had held my hand and promised we'd figure it out together. Instead, she'd figured out Jason. I closed the photos and opened my contacts, scrolling to Sam Patel's number. Sam was my closest friend and co-worker, a fellow civil engineer with a sharp wit and a talent for seeing through people's bullshit. If anyone would understand what I was about to do, it would be Sam. "Nick, everything okay? It's barely 8 a.m. "I need a favor, Sam. A big one." "What kind of favor?" "The kind where you don't ask too many questions." There was a pause. Sam had known me for 7 years. He knew I wasn't dramatic, wasn't impulsive, wasn't the kind of person who called in favors lightly. "What do you need?" "Can you be at Romano's tonight?" 7 o'clock. "I know it's last minute, but—" "Your anniversary party. Emily mentioned it to Priya last week. We were planning to send a gift, but if you want us there—" "I want you there. Trust me, you won't want to miss this." Another pause. "Nick, what's going on?" "You'll see tonight. Just bring your phone, and maybe a camera." I hung up before he could ask more questions. The fewer people who knew about my plan ahead of time, the better. This needed to look spontaneous, emotional, real. Because in a way, it was. The rest of the morning passed in a haze of mundane preparations. I showered, shaved, and put on my best suit, the charcoal gray one Emily had picked out for me last Christmas. I wanted to look good for tonight. Presentable, respectable, the kind of man who deserved better than what he'd gotten. At 10 a.m., I drove to my office at Morrison Engineering, a mid-size firm that specialized in municipal projects, roads, bridges, water treatment facilities, the unglamorous infrastructure that kept society functioning. I'd been there for 8 years, working my way up from junior engineer to project manager. Steady work, decent pay, nothing flashy. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days building things that were meant to last, while my marriage crumbled around me. "You look like hell," Sam said, appearing in my cubicle doorway with 2 cups of coffee. He was shorter than me, with dark hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His wife Priya always said he looked like a Bollywood version of Clark Kent. "Thanks for the pep talk." "Seriously, Nick, what's going on? You've been weird for weeks." I accepted the coffee and gestured for him to sit down. My cubicle was small, cramped, decorated with engineering awards and photos of Emily and me from happier times, or what I'd thought were happier times. "Can I ask you something, Sam? As a friend?" "Always." "If you found out Priya was cheating on you, what would you do?" Sam's face went very still. "That's a hell of a hypothetical question." "Humor me." He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee. "I don't know. Confront her, I guess. Try to work it out, if possible. If not—" He shrugged. "Divorce? Clean break? Why? What if it wasn't just cheating? What if it was cheating with someone close to you? Someone in your family?" Jesus, Nick. Sam set down his coffee and leaned forward. This isn't hypothetical, is it? I didn't answer directly. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the screenshots I'd taken. Nothing explicit, just a text exchange between Emily and someone labeled Jay in her contacts. Jay, can't wait to see you tonight. It's been too long. Emily, I know. I hate sneaking around like this. Jay, soon we won't have to. I promise. Emily, what about Nick? Jay, let me worry about Nick. Sam read the messages twice, his expression darkening. Who's Jay? Jason, my brother. The coffee cup slipped from Sam's hand, splashing dark liquid across my desk. Your brother? Jason? The pharmaceutical guy? That's the one. How long? Almost 2 years, from what I can tell. Sam was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, he looked up at me with something like admiration in his eyes. And tonight's anniversary party is going to be very interesting. Nick, whatever you're planning, nothing illegal, nothing violent, just truth. Pure, unfiltered truth. In front of your entire family, in front of everyone who matters. Sam shook his head slowly. This is going to be a disaster. No, I said, cleaning up the spilled coffee with a stack of napkins. This is going to be justice. The rest of the workday crawled by. I tried to focus on blueprints and project timelines, but my mind kept drifting to tonight. I'd rehearsed my speech a dozen times, refined it, perfected it. Short enough to deliver before anyone could stop me, detailed enough to leave no room for doubt. At 4 o'clock, I left the office early, claiming I needed time to prepare for the anniversary dinner. That was true, just not in the way my boss assumed. I drove home through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, tree-lined avenues with colonial-style houses, perfectly manicured lawns, the kind of place where people lived quiet, respectable lives, or at least pretended to. Emily's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. She'd gotten home early, too, probably to spend extra time getting ready, looking perfect for Jason. I found her in our bedroom, standing in front of the full-length mirror in her red dress. She looked beautiful. There was no denying that. The dress hugged her curves in all the right places, and she'd done something different with her hair, swept it up to show off her neck. "What do you think?" she asked, spinning around to face me. "You look incredible." She smiled, genuinely this time. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She had no idea what was coming. "I'm nervous," she admitted, adjusting her earrings. "Isn't that silly? 10 years of marriage, and I'm nervous about our anniversary party." "Why nervous?" "I don't know. I just want everything to be perfect, you know? This is such a milestone, 10 years. A lot of couples don't make it this far." "No," I agreed. "They don't." I went to my closet and pulled out my suit, laying it carefully on the bed. Emily watched me in the mirror, and for a moment, we looked like any normal couple getting ready for a special evening. "Nick?" "Yeah?" "I love you. You know that, right?" The words hit me like a physical blow, not because they were true, but because they weren't. Or maybe they were true, in some complicated way that I couldn't understand. Maybe Emily did love me, in whatever capacity she was capable of loving anyone. It didn't matter anymore. "I know," I said. She smiled and went back to adjusting her makeup. I finished getting dressed in silence, checking my appearance in the bathroom mirror. I looked good, composed, ready. At 6:30, we got in the car and drove toward Romano's restaurant. Emily chattered nervously about the guest list, the menu, the seating arrangements she'd carefully planned. I nodded and made appropriate responses, but my mind was elsewhere. "Your parents are sitting with mine," Emily was saying. "I thought that would be nice. Let them catch up. And I put Jason next to the Hendersons. He always gets along so well with Margaret." "I'm sure he does." "The Patels are coming, right? You said Sam confirmed?" "He'll be there." "Good. I like Sam. And Priya is so sweet." We pulled into Romano's parking lot at 10 minutes to 7. The restaurant was busy, the dinner crowd in full swing. Through the windows, I could see our private dining room in the back, already decorated with flowers and candles. "Ready?" Emily asked, checking her lipstick one last time. More than ready. We walked into the restaurant hand in hand, the picture of marital happiness. The hostess led us to our private room, where most of our guests had already arrived. My parents, Tom and Susan Callahan, were talking with Emily's parents, Richard and Patricia Morrison. The Hendersons, our neighbors, were examining the wine list. A few of Emily's co-workers clustered near the bar, and there, in the center of it all, was Jason. He looked exactly like what he was, a successful salesman in an expensive suit. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile was perfectly white, and his handshake was perfectly firm when he greeted us. "Nick, Emily, congratulations, you two. 10 years, that's really something." "It really is," I agreed, watching his face carefully. No guilt, no shame, no acknowledgement of what he'd done. Just that same confident smile he'd worn his entire life. "Emily, you look absolutely stunning," Jason continued, his eyes lingering on her dress just a fraction too long. "That color is perfect on you." "Thank you, Jason. You're so sweet." Sweet. Right. More guests arrived. Sam and Priya, a few more co-workers, some old friends from college. The room filled with conversation and laughter, the warm buzz of people celebrating something they believed in. At 7:30, the waitstaff began serving dinner. Emily had chosen the menu carefully: salmon, chicken, vegetarian options, something for everyone. The wine flowed freely, loosening tongues and brightening smiles. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing, watching everything. Emily was radiant, playing the perfect hostess, making sure everyone felt included and appreciated. Jason held court at his end of the table, telling stories about his latest business trip, his latest client victory, his latest whatever. My parents seemed to be enjoying themselves, though my mother kept shooting me concerned looks. She'd always been able to read me better than anyone else, and something in my demeanor was clearly bothering her. "You okay, honey?" she asked during a lull in the conversation. "Perfect, Mom. Just taking it all in." At 8:15, Emily stood up and tapped her wine glass with her fork. The room gradually fell quiet, all eyes turning to her. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice clear and confident. 10 years ago, Nick and I promised to love, honor, and cherish each other for the rest of our lives. It hasn't always been easy, but it's been worth it. Every challenge, every triumph, every ordinary Tuesday, we've faced it together. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Someone said, "Aw." Someone else raised their glass. "Nick is the most patient, understanding, generous man I've ever known," Emily continued, looking directly at me. "He's supported my career, put up with my moods, and never once made me feel like I was anything less than his equal partner in this marriage." The irony was suffocating. "So here's to 10 wonderful years," Emily concluded, raising her wine glass high. "And to many, many more. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Nick. I love you." The room erupted in applause and cheers. Everyone raised their glasses, toasting our happiness, our love, our bright future together. Everyone except me. I stood up slowly, my own glass in my hand, and waited for the noise to die down. Emily was beaming at me, expecting a reciprocal toast, a matching declaration of love and commitment. Instead, I smiled and said, "And you ruined them by inviting your lover here." The silence was instantaneous and complete. 28 people frozen in place, glasses halfway to their lips, smiles fading into confusion and shock. Emily's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor, dark red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. "Nick," she whispered, "what are you—" 2 years, Emily. 23 months, to be precise. Did you think I'd never find out? Jason had gone very pale, his confident smile replaced by something that looked like panic. "Nick, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, brother." I turned to face the room, addressing our stunned guests. "I'm sorry you all had to find out this way, but my wife and my brother have been having an affair for almost 2 years. They've been planning their little rendezvous in my house, in his apartment, probably in half the hotels between here and Boston." My mother gasped. Emily's father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "That's enough," Richard Morrison said sharply. "I don't know what's gotten into you, Nick, but this is neither the time nor the place." "When would be the right time, Richard? When would be the appropriate moment to discuss the fact that your daughter has been cheating on me with my own brother?" Emily was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Nick, please, can we talk about this privately?" "We're way past private conversations, Emily." I pulled out my phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, 2 years' worth of evidence that my loving wife has been living a double life. Jason finally found his voice. "You went through her phone? That's a violation of privacy?" "You fucked my wife. That's a violation of marriage." The room exploded into chaos. People were shouting, standing up, demanding explanations. Emily was sobbing into her hands. Jason was backing toward the door, his face flushed with embarrassment and rage. But I wasn't done. "Sit down, Jason," I said quietly. "We're just getting started." Jason froze halfway to the door, his hand on the handle. For a moment I thought he might run anyway, bolt into the night and leave Emily to face the music alone. But his pride wouldn't let him. Jason Callahan had never backed down from a confrontation in his life, even when he should have. "You want to do this here?" he said, turning back to face the room. "In front of everyone? I think our family deserves to know the truth, don't you?" My father stood up slowly, his face hard as granite. Tom Callahan was a retired construction foreman, a man who'd built his life on honest work and straight talk. He looked at Jason with the kind of disappointment that cuts deeper than anger. "Is it true?" he asked simply. Jason's mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. "Dad, Is it true?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Everyone was staring at Jason now, waiting for an answer that everyone already knew. "It's complicated," Jason finally said. "No," my father replied. "It's not." Emily had stopped crying and was staring at me with something that looked like hatred. "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. 3 weeks? And you've been planning this? This public humiliation?" "I've been planning to tell the truth. If that humiliates you, maybe you should have thought about that before you started screwing my brother." Emily's mother, Patricia, spoke up for the first time. "Nicholas, I understand you're upset, but this is hardly the way to handle a marital problem." I laughed, and the sound was harsh enough to make several people flinch. "A marital problem? Patricia, your daughter has been cheating on me for 2 years. She's been lying to my face, sleeping in my bed, pretending to love me while she planned a future with another man. This isn't a marital problem, this is betrayal." "We never planned a future together," Emily said quickly. "It wasn't like that." "No? Then what was it like?" She looked around the room desperately, as if searching for allies, for someone who might take her side. But the faces staring back at her were shocked, disappointed, disgusted. Even her closest friends looked like they wanted to disappear. "It just happened," she said weakly. "We didn't mean for it to happen." Bullshit. I pulled up the text messages on my phone again, scrolling to one of the more damning conversations. March 15th. You wrote, and I quote, "I can't keep pretending to love Nick when all I think about is you." That doesn't sound like something that just happened. Emily's face went white. Jason was staring at the floor, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "And here's my personal favorite," I continued, scrolling to another message. April 22nd. Jason wrote, "Nick's too stupid to figure it out. He trusts everyone, especially family. You replied. That's what makes this so easy. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the clink of dishes from the main dining room, the distant sound of traffic outside, the harsh rasp of my own breathing. My mother was crying quietly, her hand pressed to her mouth. Sam was staring at me with a mixture of admiration and horror. The Hendersons looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. You went through 2 years of messages? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Every single one. Did you know that you've had sex in our bed exactly 17 times while I was at work? Or that Jason has a key to our house that I never knew about? Or that you've been using our joint credit card to pay for hotel rooms? Each revelation hit the room like a physical blow. I watched the faces around me change from shock to disgust to something approaching pity, not for Emily and Jason, but for me. Stop, Emily said. Please, just stop. Why? Because you're embarrassed? Because people are finally seeing who you really are? Because this isn't solving anything, she shouted, her composure finally cracking completely. Yes, I had an affair. Yes, I lied to you. But destroying me in public isn't going to fix our marriage. I don't want to fix our marriage, Emily. I want to end it. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Emily stared at me as if I'd slapped her. You want a divorce? I want you out of my life. Both of you. Jason finally found his voice again. Nick, look, I know this seems bad. Seems bad? I turned on him, all the rage I'd been holding back for 3 weeks finally breaking free. You've been fucking my wife for 2 years and it seems bad? We didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean to get caught. There's a difference. I looked around the room at all the people who'd come to celebrate my marriage, friends, family, colleagues, neighbors. They were all staring at me with a mixture of sympathy and fascination, like witnesses to a car accident. I'm sorry you all had to see this, I said, but I thought you deserved to know the truth before you congratulated us on our wonderful marriage. I pulled out my wallet and threw $200 on the table. That should cover dinner. Emily, Jason, don't let me keep you from your evening plans. I walked toward the door, but Jason stepped in front of me, blocking my path. We're not done here, he said, his voice low and threatening. Yes, we are. You just humiliated your wife and your brother in front of 30 people. You think you can just walk away? I think I can do whatever I want. You forfeited any say in my life the moment you decided to betray me. Jason's face was flushed with anger now, his careful composure completely gone. You sanctimonious bastard. You think you're so perfect? You think you're such a great husband? Better than you are a brother. He took a step closer, his hands curling into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. Part of me hoped he would. It would make everything that came next so much easier. But Jason had always been smarter than he was brave. He stepped aside, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. I walked past him without another word, past Emily's tears and my mother's shocked silence, past the wreckage of my 10-year marriage, and out into the cool night air. Behind me, I could hear voices rising in argument, questions being shouted, the sound of chairs scraping and people moving. But I didn't look back. I had work to do. I sat in my car in Romano's parking lot for 20 minutes, watching through the restaurant windows as the chaos I'd created continued to unfold. People were leaving in small groups, their faces animated with the kind of shocked excitement that comes from witnessing someone else's personal disaster. The Hendersons hurried past my car without making eye contact. Emily's co-workers clustered together near their cars, probably already composing the texts they'd send to everyone they knew. By the time Emily and Jason emerged from the restaurant, most of the guests had already left. They stood under the entrance lights having what looked like an intense conversation, her gesturing frantically, him shaking his head and checking his phone. My phone buzzed with a text from Sam. Jesus Christ. Nick, Are you okay? Call me. I didn't call him. Instead, I started my car and drove home, taking the long way through neighborhoods I'd known my entire life, past the elementary school where Emily and I had voted in every election for the past decade, past the park where we'd walked our dog before he died 3 years ago, past the coffee shop where we'd had our first date, back when I still believed in happy endings. The house was dark when I arrived, exactly as we'd left it 3 hours earlier. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the hallway, breathing in the familiar scent of Emily's perfume and the vanilla candles she loved to burn. Our home was a modest colonial on a quiet street, nothing fancy but comfortable and well-maintained. We'd bought it 7 years ago, when Emily got promoted and my salary at Morrison Engineering finally reached the point where we could afford the mortgage. It had felt like such an achievement then, proof that we were building something together, something that would last. Now it just felt like a crime scene. I went upstairs to our bedroom and opened Emily's dresser, pulling out drawers and dumping their contents on the bed. Lingerie I'd never seen her wear, jewelry I'd never seen her buy, a small box hidden under her sweaters that contained a spare key, not to our house, but to something else. Jason's apartment, probably. In the back of her closet, I found a garment bag I didn't recognize. Inside was a black cocktail dress with the tags still on, expensive and elegant. A dress meant for someone special, for special occasions. Occasions that didn't include her husband. My phone rang. Emily. Nick, where are you? Home, where are you? In the parking lot at Romano's. We need to talk. I think we've said everything that needs saying. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Explain what, Emily? How you accidentally fell into bed with my brother? How you accidentally lied to me for 2 years? How you accidentally made me look like a fool in front of everyone I care about? She was crying again. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Were you planning to leave me? Were you going to tell me eventually, or were you just going to keep lying until I died? I don't know. I was confused. I am confused. Well, let me clear things up for you. We're getting divorced. I'll have papers drawn up tomorrow. Nick, wait. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next hour, I methodically went through our house, collecting evidence of Emily's deception. The burner phone hidden in her gym bag, credit card statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels I'd never been to, a calendar in her home office with appointments marked only as J, always during times when I was at work or out of town. The most damning evidence was a folder hidden in her desk drawer, filled with printouts of apartment listings. All one-bedroom places, all downtown, all within walking distance of Jason's building. She'd been planning to leave me, probably had been for months. At 11 o'clock, I heard Emily's car in the driveway. I was sitting in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, when she walked through the front door. She'd been crying for hours. Her makeup was ruined, her perfect hair disheveled, her red dress wrinkled and stained. She looked like a woman whose world had just collapsed, which was exactly what she was. Nick? She called out tentatively. In here. She appeared in the doorway and stopped short when she saw the papers and photos spread across the coffee table. You went through my things. I went through our things. This is still my house, too. At least for now. She sat down across from me, careful to avoid looking at the evidence of her affair. Can we talk? Really talk, without the anger and the accusations? I'm not angry, Emily. I'm done. You're not angry? You just destroyed our marriage in front of 30 people. No, you destroyed our marriage when you decided to fuck my brother. I just made it public. She flinched at the crude language. Emily had always prided herself on being refined, sophisticated, above such vulgarity. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said quietly. Jason and we were just friends. He was going through his divorce, and I was trying to help him. We talked. We had dinner a few times, and then you decided you'd rather be married to him than to me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and my brother have been planning a life together while I paid the bills and played the fool. Emily was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, there was something different in her eyes. Not guilt or shame, but a kind of cold calculation. You want to know the truth, Nick? The real truth? I'd love to hear it. You're boring. You're safe and reliable and boring, and I felt like I was suffocating. Every day was the same. Work, dinner, television, bed. You never surprised me, never challenged me, never made me feel like I was anything more than your comfortable habit. The words hit harder than I'd expected, probably because there was some truth in them. Jason made me feel alive again, she continued. He was exciting, spontaneous, dangerous. When I was with him, I remembered what it felt like to be desired, not just needed. So you decided to have your cake and eat it too. I decided to take something for myself, for once. Something that made me happy. And my happiness didn't matter? Your happiness was never in question. You were perfectly content with our little routine. You never asked for more because you never wanted more. I stared at her, this woman I'd lived with for 10 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The Emily I'd married, or thought I'd married, would never have been so cold, so calculating, so utterly without remorse. You're right, I said finally. I was content. I thought I had a wife who loved me, a marriage worth preserving, a future worth building. I was wrong about all of that. Nick. But you were wrong too, Emily. You thought I was too boring, too trusting, too stupid to figure out what you were doing. You thought you could keep your exciting secret life while I paid for your comfortable public life. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet street, our normal neighborhood, our perfectly ordinary life. The thing is, I continued, boring people can be very patient. We can watch and wait and plan. We can be very thorough when we set our minds to something. What do you mean? I turned back to face her. I mean that destroying your reputation at dinner tonight was just the beginning. For the first time since she'd walked in, Emily looked genuinely afraid. What are you talking about? You'll see, but I'd recommend you find somewhere else to stay tonight, and for the foreseeable future. You can't kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. You're welcome to fight me in court, but that's going to be expensive, and I have a feeling you're going to need every penny you can get. Emily stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, calculating her options, looking for an angle. You bastard, she said finally. Maybe, but I'm a bastard who knows exactly what you've been doing for the past 2 years, and I'm just getting started. She stood up abruptly, her face flushed with anger. You think you can destroy my life because I made a mistake? I think I can destroy your life because you destroyed mine first. The only difference is I'm better at it than you are. Emily stormed out of the living room, and I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of dresser drawers being yanked open. She was packing, which was exactly what I'd hoped she would do. 20 minutes later, she came back downstairs with 2 suitcases and her purse. This isn't over, Nick. No, I agreed. It's not. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back to me. I did love you, you know. In the beginning. I know. That's what makes this so much worse. After she left, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal and the silence of our empty house. For the first time in 3 weeks, I felt something approaching peace. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Word of last night's dinner had spread through our social circle like wildfire, and everyone wanted details, explanations, or simply to express their shock and sympathy. I ignored them all. Instead, I made coffee, ate breakfast, and drove to my lawyer's office. Martin Kowalski was a family attorney I'd met through work. Morrison Engineering had used his services for contract disputes. He was competent, discreet, and had no love for cheating spouses. Jesus, Nick, he said when I finished explaining the situation. You really went nuclear, didn't you? I went honest. There's a difference. Martin leaned back in his leather chair, studying me with the calculating gaze of a man who'd seen every variation of human betrayal. 2 years of evidence. That's thorough. I'm an engineer. Thorough is what I do. And you want to file for divorce immediately? Today, if possible. It's possible. Massachusetts is a no-fault state, but with this level of documented adultery, we can push for a very favorable settlement. The house, most of the assets, minimal alimony. I don't want alimony. I want her gone. Martin raised an eyebrow. Most people in your situation want to make their cheating spouse pay. I'm not most people. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The real reason I didn't want alimony was simpler. I wanted Emily to have to depend on Jason for financial support. I wanted her to discover exactly how generous and reliable her exciting lover would be when the bills came due. What about your brother? Martin asked. Any plans there? Jason's not my problem anymore. Another half-truth. Jason was absolutely my problem, but not in a way that required legal intervention. What I had planned for my brother was more personal. I left Martin's office with divorce papers filed and a timeline for asset division. Emily would be served at her workplace within 24 hours, a nice public touch that would ensure her coworkers knew exactly why her marriage had ended. My next stop was Morrison Engineering, where I found Sam waiting in my cubicle with another cup of coffee and a concerned expression. You look terrible, he said. I feel great. Nick, about last night. Was it everything I promised it would be? Sam was quiet for a moment, studying my face. It was brutal. I've never seen anything like it. Good. Emily left with Jason. They looked close. I'm sure they did. Are you okay? Really okay? I sat down at my desk and turned on my computer, checking my email with the same methodical precision I brought to every task. I'm better than I've been in 2 years, Sam. For the first time since this whole thing started, I know exactly where I stand. Which is? Free. Sam didn't look convinced, but he didn't push the issue. He knew me well enough to recognize when I'd made up my mind about something. The rest of the morning passed quietly. I worked on blueprints, reviewed project timelines, attended a staff meeting about a new bridge contract. Normal, routine, boring work. Exactly the kind of thing Emily had found so insufferable about our life together. At lunch, I drove across town to Jason's apartment building. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my car in the parking garage, watching and waiting. At 12:47, Emily's car pulled into a visitor's space. She got out carrying a bag of takeout food and walked toward the elevators with the familiar confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going. She'd moved in with him. Less than 24 hours after our marriage exploded, and she was already playing house with my brother. I trailed Emily to Jason's 15th floor corner unit, noted her car and the time, and added it to my file, evidence of their cohabitation and proof for the divorce. I met Jason at Murphy's bar and made one thing clear. I wouldn't let them get away with it. He left furious. I left with appointments set. Emily's boss, Jason's HR, and his ex-wife. If they wanted to be together, everyone else would know exactly who they chose. 3 days later, Emily was suspended and Jason's company launched an inquiry after corporate expenses tied to their affair surfaced. Linda got the texts I sent and immediately moved to restrict Jason's visitation. His life started unraveling fast. He called me begging me to stop. I told him there was nothing he could give me that would undo what he took. Emily offered a hush-money NDA through her lawyer. I laughed it off and refused. Her mother showed up pleading for mercy. But I'd changed. Naive was gone, and consequences were coming. I told Patricia there'd be no rescue, then put my phone away and got on with the plans that will finish this once and for all. Nick Callahan's revenge was quiet, elegant, and absolute. At the Riverside charity auction, Surrounded by polite laughter and champagne glasses, he calmly took the microphone and dismantled two lives with surgical precision. He didn't shout, didn't rage, he simply laid out the truth piece by piece until the room turned to ice. Every secret Emily and Jason had buried came into the light. Every message, every lie, every dollar stolen to fund their affair. By the time he walked out, Emily's reputation was in shambles, Jason's career was finished, and every whisper in that glittering room was a sentence in their social execution. Nick didn't need to look back to know chaos had erupted behind him. He'd planned this moment for weeks, and now it was done. Later, when Emily called, begging for forgiveness, Nick gave her the final twist of the knife. "You said I never surprised you. How's that working out?" Then he hung up, turned off his phone, and poured himself a drink. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft, cleansing, merciless. Inside, Nick sat in the silence of his victory, finally at peace. The betrayal was over, the lies were ashes, and justice had been served, not by rage, but by exposure. Some people sought closure. Nick had found something better. He'd found clarity and the sweet, quiet taste of perfect revenge. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.